George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people that we feel good about. Daphne Jones is the author of Win When They Say You Won't. Keep leveling up breaking through barriers, keep leveling up your success. It's a great book. Get it. And Daphne's had a tremendous career. And I want to talk about the book and your career and all of that, Daphne. But can we just pause for a moment? Because we find ourselves, sister, in a particular moment in time. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We find ourselves in a particular moment in time, dealing with the results of the 2024 election, when for some of us, the unthinkable happened, and for others of us, it was just what they wanted. How are you processing this moment?
Well, thank you, George. And I know that there's a God above and a heaven above, and he's looking down right now, because I asked for clarity on why this happened. And, is it God's will, or is it that people chose? And, people are are misdirected a lot of times. So I can't say this was God's will, but it could be, certainly. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning, George. And for me, being transparent and vulnerable, my morning ain't come yet. It's still night for me. I was at Bible study last night, and I was literally crying. And some of the members had to come over and hold me, because I said, this shouldn't be. This should not be happening. But it is what it is. So how am I processing it? I think as I listened to her yesterday, she said she's going to concede the election, but she's not conceding the fight. And so it makes you know that we as people of color, we as women, we as Black men, whatever, however you want to put us in the different categories, we've had to fight for a long time, and we've had successes. We have not been in the dark and buried, deep down for, all the time. There have been some victories, and there's, hills and valleys, if you will. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is, I think she's going to reimagine herself. So one of the things that I think we have to do is always show how we can continually improve ourselves. I don't know if she's going to run again in the future, or what the Democrats will do, but I bet you she's not going to bury herself and just stay the same. I think she's going to continually improve. And that's how I say, well, if I would imagine what a Kamala would do, I would imagine she's going to improve her capabilities and her contributions to the world. And so part of what I talk about in my book is, how do you go from version 1 of yourself to version 2 of yourself? Because that's what the iPhone does, and it's at version 17 right now. So if we can look at ourselves as a product, and that has a marketplace, she's a product, and she's got a market. She's got to make sure that she remains relevant and gets better so she can come back swinging. We have to do that as well. And she's reimagined herself from U.S. Senator, Attorney General, District Attorney, Vice President. So she's reimagined herself. She can do it. We can do it. Okay, that's one. Number 2, it's about the word responsibility. We have the ability to choose how we respond at a moment like this. And where there's ignorance, where there's racism, where there's misogyny, where there's a lack of belief that the world is going warm, whatever it is, we have to take the higher ground and understand that we have the ability to choose how we respond. We can get mad, we can cry, we can react violently, or we can respond and think things through and say, how can we win this fight in the long run? It's a long fight. It's not a short fight. And I think finally, I would say that she reminds us that when we're buried, we have to remember that we're a seed. And what do seeds do? Seeds love to get buried. That's what they do for a living. They get buried for a living. And so she got buried the other day, if you will. But I believe, just like a seed, she's going to get her legs under her. I got to get my legs under me, and know that just because I've been disappointed one time and buried one time, I'm going to go down deep and find the silt and the soil and the nutrients and the water. And I'm going to look for some sun, and I'm going to eventually come back up above ground. And I'm going to say, I'm back. Y'all thought I was done. Y'all buried me, but I'm not done. And so when you do that, I think we have to look at this moment as if we've been buried, but we have to also know that we're a seed. And then when we come above ground, we're going to just grow, and we're going to throw shade on all those people that, buried us. But we're going to do more than that. We're going to deliver fruit. We're going to transformative fruit, delicious fruit, healthy fruit that other people can eat, even those that buried us, because we are not here for ourselves or by ourselves. We're here to advance, other people. So I think whenever we see something like this being buried, remember that we are a seed.
I want to really get back to or hone in on what you said, and because you made this relevant for us, and I'm thinking about my own life and career and things of that nature. And when you talk about reinvention, the 1.2.10 version of yourself, or reimagining yourself for any time and oftentimes. So these are all the thoughts that are coming at me all at once, and hopefully here's what I'm thinking about, right? I'm thinking about campaigning, right? So if you're in corporate and you talk about when you say you won't, when they say you won't, I'm thinking that some of us have not campaigned, right, to show up in the places that will get us what we need in that setting for the job that we want. So that's one thing. And then the other piece of it is, how does one take, often we don't feel like we have the time to reinvent or reimagine for whatever the conditions are. So help us through that mindset that says, one, I may not see that I can be another version at this point, and two, the campaign that's often necessary to elevate oneself. Those are two different things.
Okay. Yeah, let me start with the second one first. You have to know that you are there, whatever you're doing, to support whatever business you're supporting. And you don't do anybody any good by maintaining the status quo. You just don't, because the business is trying to grow market share. They're trying to grow 8%, 5%, 12% per year. So if they're growing and you're not, that gap between you and them gets bigger. And so you have to assess the situation and say, where am I as a person? And, in my book, I talk about the 5 F's. It's not only, it's your faith, it's your family, it's your finances, it's your fitness level, mental and physical fitness, and furthering your career is the 5th F. A lot of times we just focus on this 5th F. So
Right.
we have to look at where we are with our families, where we are with health care. Do we have a sick mother and a sick child living at home, and we're in the middle trying to take care of everybody? You got to look at the situation. And then you have to decide, well, what do you want? She didn't become vice president overnight. Nothing happens overnight. Some people say they fall in love overnight, but I don't know how long that'll last. Not too many things happen overnight. And so you have to assess the situation and then decide the outcome that you want. And it may take 3 years, it may take 10 years, but if you don't put a vision out there, then nothing will happen. And people without a vision will perish, right? So you gotta just, decide what you want to do. And then you say, well, who can help me? Because there are people, by myself, I know a little bit, but with everybody around me, I know everything, or we know everything collectively. So you don't take it as if, oh my God, this is only me, only I can do this, or no one's going to help me. Yes, they will. People want to help. They are here also to help each other and myself and yourself. So you then you design a plan. It's like, if you're going to cook Thanksgiving dinner, you got a plan for how many people are coming over, how
Right,
many
right.
eggs you're going to need for the potato salad or whatever. You plan. You're going on a cross the country trip. You plan. It's the same thing with your life. And if you need a mentor or a coach, you don't have to do it by yourself. There are people who are there to help. And then you execute, and just do your plan. You may fall down, but you get right back up. So it's really a system that you use, just like a company uses a system. They assess their situation. They look at competition. They understand where they want to go. They get the resources to go there. They try it. They may gut off a little bit, but then they don't give up. They try it again. It's the same thing. when you talk about campaigning, it's really it's a great word, especially right now, in that if you don't tell your boss or whoever that you want to aspire to do something, they'll never know. They'll think you're happy right where you are. And so you have to let your work speak for you. First of all, your work has to be good. And that's where the PIE, if you may remember, we talked about pie last time I was on your show, and the P stands for performance. So you have to be good. You got to be better than good. You got to be great. And you have to turn in your stuff early. If you got to work an extra hour or two at home to show how great you are, then do that, because your P is really important. But there's more to your ability to get that next job or that next opportunity than just performing. You have to have an image. You have to show up, and that I in pie is for image. And you got to show up like you got it going on. You have to be kind. You have to be on time. You have to support other people, and hopefully they will also support you. You have to have that image of collaboration, that image of strategic thinking. Whatever is important for your job, you ask your boss, how can I help you look good, boss? And whatever your boss says, that's how you got to show up, and that will be your image. Your brand, your reputation, all that stuff is your image. Are you always late? Are you always complaining about something? Are you always blaming somebody else for what you did? That is a brand that you don't want to have. That's your image. And then the final one is back to your campaign question. It's exposure. So the E in pie is for exposure. And so exposure just says, who knows me? Who knows George? And do I know them? And it's more important that they know you than you know them, because when you're not in the room and you're not on Zoom and they're talking about you, you'll need somebody who will advocate for you, who will speak up on your behalf, somebody who will see you down there and they'll pull you up. That's how you get promoted. You get promoted by somebody pulling you up. So the campaigning is where your performance speaks for itself. Your image is where you are showing up as a professional, as a strong leader, but you have to get to know people. And just as people say, oh, I'm too busy to go to the doctor and get a mammogram, but you're not going to be too busy when you get breast cancer, right? So you can't be too busy to invest in your own career. You set aside some time on the weekend, send a note to somebody that might be important in your life, and they're called stakeholders. And there are stakeholders who are very powerful, and you got to decide which powerful ones you want. And then there's some that like you and don't like you. So you may have a powerful stakeholder who doesn't like you. What do you do in that situation? Or you may have a powerful stakeholder that loves you. You go after them as much as you can. Ask for their feedback, ask for their advice. You have to take the time to campaign, even if it's a little bit at a time, because it will result in big steps.
I love that, what you said. We're talking with Daphne Jones, author of When They Say You Want, Breaking Through Barriers, Keep Leveling Up Your Success. I think I have that. Break through barriers and keep leveling up your success. And I love that you said that, because often I was thinking about what you said. We don't invest enough time in those key stakeholders. Sometimes I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
We don't do that as much as we should, or we take them for granted. They have to be nurtured and developed as much as new relationships you're trying to develop and nurture. Say something about that, because I feel like that's a key point that sometimes is missed.
Yeah, and people can there's a saying that says you never want to fix the roof while it's raining. And you never want to call your buddy, your partner, your friend, your coach, your whatever, sponsor, mentor, only when you're in trouble. Because you want to develop genuine relationships. And there are times when you can send somebody an email with an article attached. This reminded me of you. I hope you enjoy it. It could be about what's happening with regulatory challenges with AI or climate change. It could be something that somebody you know is going to care about, and that somebody is a powerful ally. Allyship is a big thing in companies, and you need an ally. So you don't want to be that person who only calls a person when you need them. Call them when you don't need them. And that way, when you call them when you need them, it's just going to be like a regular check-in. It won't be like some emergency. and you have to do that. And if you don't invest in that, it'll be hard for them to invest in you.
Two things that I'm thinking of. First thing is, many people right now in this moment, we talked about post 2024, they're finding themselves perplexed because of relationships with people that they thought they had a lot in common. And then politically, they learned that, how do you navigate that right now? Because, I see people on social media, I'm not following you anymore. You're cut off, and because people don't want that in their life right now. You said it's still night for you. You admitted that in terms of thinking about this 2024 election. How do you recommend people navigate this particular moment where people may feel disappointed, may feel betrayed?
Well, voting is a very private thing, and nobody has to know or should know unless you really want to tell them.
Right.
And so I don't, I may ask one of my board members, and believe me, boards of directors tended to vote Republican. I'm
Right.
just saying. And so I know some of my board members, we were just talking about the two candidates, and he told me who he was going to vote for. I'm like, really? Tell me more. And I said, I need to learn something because you must be seeing something that I'm not seeing. So I tried to approach it as a learning exercise, as opposed to, because as Aaliyah, the song, she's deceased now, but she said, "At your best, you are love." I can't teach you what you think you already know, in her song. And so I don't want somebody to think that I know everything, because they may know something that I don't know that I think I might know. And so you treat it as an information gathering. You're curious, but you don't get into a battle on it. You battle the competition, battle high prices, battle poor quality. Don't battle each other in the office setting or in the family setting, because unless you think it's going to benefit you somehow, it's not worth your time. It's not worth the trouble. So I asked the question. I have done that, but I took it as a learning experience as opposed to something to try to beat them up or get them to turn to my side.
You talk about leveling up your success. How can folks who read the book or when they learn about Daphne and your story and what you overcame, how do they identify opportunities for growth when they feel stuck?
Well, it starts with, in my opinion and my experience, it starts with your purpose. You have to understand, where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself? Because there are times when people are just doing things. They're just doing whatever is available and easy. But it's time for you to think about what you want to become. Who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And if you don't have a destination, as they say, any road will get you there. So it starts with having a purpose, and then understanding what is it going to take to make that leap. Because if you don't leap, you may never reach. So who on LinkedIn, who on maybe Instagram, but mostly LinkedIn, is doing right now what you want to do maybe 3 years from now? But you have to have a destination in your mind that says, this is what I want to do. So the purpose comes in with there's an intersection between two things. What do you love to do? And what do you have a passion for? And what are you really good at? If you are good at science and math and all that, and you love people, you might make a great doctor. But if you are great at math and great at science, but you hate people, you might be a scientist in a laboratory where you only interact with machines and samples and stuff. And so you have to understand what your purpose is, and that is that combination of what you passionate about and what you're good at. And if you have that, because we all have a superpower. Einstein says that we are all a genius. We all have a genius. But if we try to measure a fish by how well it can climb a tree, that fish will feel stupid for the rest of its life, because we know fish don't climb trees, cats do. So you put that fish in the environment where it can thrive, which is in water, where it's really fast, it's very agile, right? It's slippery, slimy, whatever you describe a fish. That's where you find yourself. Put yourself in the water, right? There's a book that says the duck who was afraid to swim. Oh my God. How can a duck be afraid to swim? Because they have the perfect feet. for swimming, and they can stay above water. But there are some of us who don't really realize what we're great at and what we're good for. And so I think it starts with knowing your purpose, and then finding people like that who are doing that now, and find a way to pick their brain and ask them how they did it, what they did, and things like that.
So, what's your superpower?
I make the complex simple, and I'm a maximizer. Those are my two superpowers. And maximizer, and the way you can find out is the Strength Finder is a book that you can get, and it asks you questions. You can take the test. It's not a test. It's like, what do you prefer? What do you prefer? And you can take it online, and it comes out, what gives you your top 5. And I forgot most of mine. I'd have to go find my book. But it said to me, I'm a maximizer, which means that I take somebody who may not have a lot or may not know a lot, and I help develop them to be more than when they started. That's what I like to do with a company. They started out without much, and when by the time I leave the company, they've grown. But also, there's a lot of complexity in technology that I've been involved in for a long time, and so part of my job as a chief information officer was to be able to help the business partners understand why investing in technology was important for their company and for their market, their customers, whatever. So I tried to make the complexity of technology simple in words that they can understand, so they can invest in my organization.
So, how has writing the book changed you and your perspective on your own journey?
Mm. Um, that's a great question. How has it changed my perspective? Um, I would say that I know that it is not easy to just say, I'm going to be a winner. And my goal is to make it look easy. And but I went through years and years and years, and so I've had to come and appreciate that when I talk to people in my talks about the book, and they are just scared to death. This imposter syndrome is a real thing. When you look at the enemies that we have, Black women earn only 70% of what white men, earn for doing the same job. Black women only make up 1% of the named executive officers in companies. So we have a really hard time of being able to say, I know I can do it. It's not impossible for me. And I realized that I make it sound easy, but it's not difficult. It just will take some time to get through your achievement. If you want to learn how to swim, you can't swim overnight. If you want to learn how to be a great public speaker, that doesn't happen overnight. But there are people who have this fear of branching out there and getting out there, and I've had to come to grips with that. I made it look easy, but I know people may not think it is.
Yeah, and I know you. First of all, I love talking to you because your analogies are spot on, and that's why you wrote the book, right? So that people will have right at their fingertips the tools that they can use to level up their own success. What would you like to? What would you like for folks to do aside from getting the book? It's online and everywhere books are. So, what would you like in this moment? Right. So we're all thinking about what are we going to do next and all of that. In this moment, for people who are, whether they're mid-career, whether they're excelling and they need a little pep, what do you want to leave them with, or a to-do list for the next, end of the year? This is fourth quarter. What do you want people to do?
I will say, I'm going to use can I say my mantra?
Please.
This is what I want them to do. Never accept no. Never settle for the status quo. If there is followers, you've got to lead. If there's a gap, you need to fill it. If there's hunger, please feed it. If there's an illness, please cure it. If there's a great thought, I hope you share it. If there's a bad word, please don't repeat it. If there's a life, I hope you live it. If there's a win, you've got to go get it. If there's prosperity, I hope you get it. And if there's wisdom, I pray you receive it. The thing I would want people to do is always find a way to win. Winning may not happen right away. Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Then you win. And so this winning happens sometimes at the end, but it also really happens at the beginning. It's received at the end, but it's conceived in the beginning. And so you have to know that you're going to win, and you always got to find a way. And winning may not be the ultimate pinnacle that you're trying to get, but if it gets you one step above where you are today, then you are winning. It's like trying to save $1 million. You don't save it, you save it a penny at a time, or a dime at a time, or dollar at a time. Right. It's the same thing about leveling up. So I want you all to, if you have a passion for something, handle it, whether it be, feeding the hungry or curing the sick or whatever you do in my mantra. Always find a way to win, and know that the word impossible is their word. Ketanji Brown Jackson is not supposed to be a Supreme Court member because she's a Black female. That was told that it was going to be impossible. It wasn't impossible. It was just inevitable. Right now, Kamala got disappointed. I got disappointed that she's not going to be the first female president. Just a matter of when. It's just a matter of time, unless something happens where we don't have elections anymore, which is always a possibility. But so it's just a matter of time. So always find a way to win, because the win is there for you. And these dog whistles of disempowerment is going on. We can systematically and strategically dismantle those things if we think about how to think like a business, think like a product, and don't take things personally, take things strategically. And it really works, because you don't need a hothead in the business. You need somebody with a cool head who knows how to respond strategically and not reacting with a violent impulse or something.
Daphne Jones is the author of Win When They Say You Won't, Break Through Barriers and Keep Leveling Up Your Success. Get it where all books are sold. I highly recommend it. Add it to your library. Make a great stocking stuffer for the holiday season. So make it happen.
Yes.
And Daphne's going to come back. So I already promised her. There it is. Hold it up right there. And Daphne promises to come back and share with us some of her keen insights on leveling up business development and personal growth and development, because Daphne wants all of us to win.
That's right.
George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.